This video was brought to you by Brilliant. Today, Israel restarts attacks on Northern Gaza, Antony Blinken visits Kyiv, and a new report reveals record numbers of internally displaced people. From TLDR News, this is your daily briefing for Tuesday the 14th of May 2024. Our main story today is that Israel has resumed its attacks in Northern Gaza, where it previously claimed to have dismantled Hamas's command structure. The military now says that Hamas is trying to reassemble in the area. Israel's renewed ground operation in North Gaza restarted over the weekend, in the Jabalia refugee camp and in the neighbourhood of Zaytun. The Israeli military are also continuing with their offensive in eastern Rafah, and near the Rafah crossing with Egypt. As a result, some of the most intense fighting for weeks is now raging in both the north and the south. With tens of thousands of Palestinians being told on Saturday to flee Jabalia, humanitarian groups say this renewed offensive has worsened an already dire situation. North Gaza has already been devastated, and the head of the World Food Programme stated this month that the area is already experiencing a full-blown famine. This restarted fighting renews questions about the IDF's long-term military strategy, which, after more than 7 months of war, has left more than 35,000 Palestinians dead and much of Gaza in ruins. More than 100 hostages from Israel remain in captivity, and Hamas's top leadership is still operating. As a result, it raises doubts about whether Israel's goal to eradicate Hamas is even realistic. As the Biden administration continues to lose its patience further, yesterday the Deputy Secretary of State bluntly stated that Washington doesn't believe Israel's current strategy will actually lead to wiping out Hamas. And on Sunday, US Secretary of State Antony Blinken gave a scathing interview with CBS on Israel's incursion on Rafah, which the White House has repeatedly condemned.
As we look at Rafah, they may go in and have some initial success, but potentially at an incredibly high cost to civilians, but one that is not durable, one that's not sustainable. And they will be left holding the bag on an enduring insurgency because a lot of armed Hamas will be left, no matter what they do in Rafah. Or if they leave and get out of Gaza, as we believe they need to do, then you're going to have a vacuum, and a vacuum that's likely to be filled by chaos, by anarchy, and ultimately by Hamas again.
With this new attack on the north, it's becoming more evident that Israel is likely to maintain an active military presence in Gaza for a long time. There's more on the way, but remember to subscribe and ring the bell for more daily briefing tomorrow. Plus, if you want to support the channel like Angus Adelsey, then consider joining the new TLDR membership program for just $1.99. Over to Ukraine now, where US Secretary of State Antony Blinken made a surprise visit to Kyiv to reassure President Zelensky that US aid is on the way. This visit by Blinken is seen as critical for Ukraine's continued war effort, as the situation on the front line has dramatically turned from a relative stalemate to a major Russian offensive in 2 short weeks. Last Friday, Russia opened up essentially a second front in Ukraine, sending thousands of troops south from Belgorod towards Kharkiv Oblast, seizing control of about 110 square kilometers of territory. Almost 7,000 people have been evacuated from the region, and yesterday Russia occupied 2 villages in Vovchansk. Ukrainian officials and analysts say that Moscow is trying to stretch Ukrainian resources by opening up new front lines before the bulk of delayed US aid arrives. On Saturday, the White House approved a $61 billion package which was debated for months, but many see this aid as too little too late. The former Ukrainian president, Viktor Yushchenko, stated that the delay was a colossal waste of time that let Putin inflict more damage. Some also argue that the aid package won't be enough for Ukraine to turn the tide. Zelensky told Blinken during their meeting that Ukraine needs US missiles and F-16 planes, but Washington has repeatedly refused. There's a full video coming out on all the developments unfolding in Kharkiv on TLDR EU tomorrow, so do check that out if you're interested. In humanitarian news, a report has revealed that more than 68 million people around the world were forced to leave their homes by the end of 2023, the highest figure since data became available 15 years ago. The report, published on Tuesday by the Internal Displacement Monitoring Center, estimated the total number of internally displaced people, or IDPs, to be a record 75.9 million. For context, IDPs are defined as people who have been forced to flee their homes by conflict, violence, persecution, or natural disasters, but who remain within the borders of their own country. In Gaza, 1.7 million people were internally displaced by the end of last year. Whilst in sub-Saharan Africa, the number of IDPs reached 34.8 million in 2023, more than double the figure from 2018, with Sudan accounting for 45% of that number. The rise in figures has been driven by both new wars and older drawn-out conflicts which saw developments, such as a new insurgency launched by M23 rebels in the DRC last year. It's also been partly driven by natural disasters, which made a further 7.7 million people homeless in 2023. Commenting on the data, Jan Egeland, the Secretary-General of the Norwegian Refugee Council, which runs the IDMC, said, "We have never ever recorded so many people forced away from their homes and communities," and called the numbers a damning verdict on the failures of conflict prevention and peacemaking. British Chancellor Jeremy Hunt has said the UK could create a tech company to rival Microsoft or Google and become the world's next Silicon Valley. It comes amid a regulatory overhaul that will make it easier for startups to access funds to generate growth. In an interview with the Financial Times, Hunt said, "I'd like to see a British Alphabet, I'd like to see a British Microsoft, and that it might not be for a decade, but I'd like to see a homegrown company with $1 trillion market cap with a big global position. That would reflect my ambition for the UK to become the world's next Silicon Valley." Currently, though, the UK's tech companies are nowhere near the levels of those in the US. The valuation of Apple alone at $2.9 trillion is more than the combined value of London's most highly valued blue-chip companies, known as the FTSE 100, at $2 trillion. However, despite a recent stream of foreign takeover bids for London-listed companies, Hunt insists that it's not too late for the UK to compete in the global tech race. His reforms include an overhaul of the UK's listing rules, looser restrictions on dual-class share structures, and reducing the number of transactions requiring shareholders' approval. But some investors are unconvinced, saying the reforms could risk undermining the UK's reputation for corporate governance. And in our final uplifting story for today, a British woman who punched a crocodile in the snout to save her sister is being awarded the King's Gallantry Medal for her bravery. 31-year-old Georgia Laurie attacked the crocodile when it dragged her twin sister Melissa underwater whilst they were swimming in a lagoon near Puerto Escondido in Mexico back in 2021. Both sisters were seriously hurt but survived. Laurie, who has described the award as a silver lining, will be one of 9 people recognised on this year's civilian gallantry list, which also includes 2 policemen who apprehended armed suspects and 6 others who rescued or protected others in life-threatening situations. Ultimately, underpinning this topic is a lot of data, whether that's economics, trade patterns, polling, or demographics. And a lot of the time in politics, you just have to understand the data. So if you want to get a better grasp on these things, I'd recommend Brilliant. They've just introduced a whole bunch of new data courses, which are perfect for learners of any level, taking you through everything from Bayes' theorem to multiple linear regression. It even uses real datasets from the likes of Starbucks, X, and Spotify to bring things to life. I'm not even a super mathematical person, and I still found it easy and enjoyable to work through. That's because of how Brilliant is designed. Built around learning by doing, with thousands of interactive lessons in maths, data analysis, programming, and AI. The good thing is that, like I said, you can learn all of these things quickly and easily, because Brilliant's courses are split into easy-to-digest chunks. Brilliant helps you build real knowledge in minutes a day, with fun lessons you can do wherever you have time, replacing mindless scrolling on the train or waiting for coffee with something actually stimulating and rewarding. So get learning across all kinds of STEM subjects for free for a full 30 days by clicking the link in the description. That way, you'll also get 20% off an annual premium subscription, and they'll know that you came from us, which really helps us out.